All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I am Chris with Monsters Under Our Bed. We cover true crime, mystery to the missing. And today we're going to be talking about the Delphi case. We've done another control test. Thanks to Steve from True Crime Web, who I will introduce here in just a minute. But I think it's amazing recreation. And we also had some help, which we'll announce here in a bit. But before we get started, we always like to give back by featuring the missing. So give me a second here to get that ready. All right. So today's missing, let me pull that over here. We have Chelsea Grimm. She's 32 years old. She went missing on, I believe, October the 9th is the last time they seen her. And let me pull up the notes. Or is it the 5th? It was early October. So here's just kind of some updates. But 32 years old. She was traveling from, where is it? It's at the bottom, I think. There it is. Let me hide this here. She was traveling from San Diego, California to Connecticut, but it looks like she made it to Arizona, Phoenix area. And well, actually, it says Williams. And there is some video footage of her where she's in her car. She was going to camp out. The officer suggested, there's a hotel nearby. She told the officer that she was fine, and that she was going to camp there. And then I believe there was another person that saw her after the officer, but then since then, they have not seen her since. So if you have any information, you can call 928-774-4523. Once again, this is Chelsea Grimm, 32 years old, went missing in northern Arizona. Okay, so let me go ahead and introduce Steve here. Welcome, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing fine, sir. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. It's always honored to have you on, buddy. So we'll get right into it because we got a pretty packed show. Um, so let me, of course, I've got so much stuff here with Delphi. Oh, you got to pull it up. So we obviously learned that there had been some leaks that come out, and one photo that did make the rounds is the F tree because originally, when everything came out, do I have the Court TV one? I think I put it in the other folder. But Court TV, I'm sure as most of you have covered or seen this case, they came out with a couple of diagrams. This is of the sticks, and then the F tree, which I have in my other folder, but I'm sure most of you probably have seen it. It looked more like a blood spattered pattern. But what was released looks much different, more as actually what the defense had said, kind of more painted on. But would like to get your thoughts on this because unfortunately we just hadn't had time to have you on. But this was the photo that was leaked out. Let me see if I can blow that up. There we go. And so here is the F tree that we believe is to be a real photo. I notice it's dark in the background. Now, just my first assumption is because whether this is real or fake, I would believe this was a real photo. And the reason they took it at night is because of the lighting during the day. It'd be harder to see maybe the F.
Uh, well, there's a couple, three reasons they may have taken everything during this sequence because this is just a snapshot in time. That okay, we're working on this tree. Darkness has got here, and so we're about to do a multi-step process that we will photograph this tree with whatever artificial lighting or flash that we have, photograph it. Then they probably would have photographed another one with a scale in it to give us some dimensions, which we don't have here. And but that's the natural progress of processing a scene. Then immediately the lights could have been turned out, and then they hit this with luminol, and we don't have those images of what luminol will look like. which would be far more interesting and offer a lot of different details that we don't have just from this picture. For if this is blood, it will absolutely pop when the lights are out and you hit the luminol. And I've got some more tests coming up that we're going to do on this specifically.
Okay, give me 1 second, guys. I notice I am lagging. You look fine, Steve. This might be, I just realized I don't have my Ethernet plugged in. Maybe this will help. So give me 1 second, guys.
Finally, it's somebody else other than my Google machine. This it happens to all of us guys.
Okay.
We have moments.
Let's see. That should fix it. There we go. That fixed it.
All right.
Maybe.
Excellent.
Hopefully. I do pay top dollar for internet. That is weird. Is it lagging on your guys' end in the stream?
Just a little bit of lagging.
Going on? Let me look at you. Okay. Now it says I've got excellent connection on YouTube side, so that means it's not me. Let's see if that. Okay, I think.
Seems okay right there.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be it. Maybe it just kind of. Yeah, because it says it's fine on YouTube's end. All right, we'll keep going. Anyway, so yeah, you did some tests on this because this does look more along the lines of someone kind of possibly painting it on, or I'm sure as you kind of talked about. Let me move this on. Yeah. You've got your recreation right here. So kind of explain what we have here.
Last year, prior to Richard Allen being arrested, about a month prior, I was asked about what would CSI expect to see in a wooded environment for a crime scene. So I thought about it and I said, well, let me go up and demonstrate things I would anticipate possibly being in an outdoor scene. I did arterial spray, ground blood spatter. This was, like I said, I think it was in September, October of 2022. And then, of course, I also did passive blood flows. And one of the passive blood flows is this here. And passive blood flow is simply that if you sustained an injury, like on your hand, and you had your hand up against a tree, or even your head, if you had a wound, that wherever the contact is to that tree, whatever blood would come in contact, and if it's there for a long enough time, you'll have a blood flow, passive blood flow, and you can test this with almost any liquid. The surface tension of that liquid would run fed by the forces of gravity, and it runs straight down. It will narrow down when the bark is thin or narrow, and then it'll flare out if some of the bark is wider. It just depends on the shape and the of each of the pieces of bark and how that blood flow goes down. I'm not saying that this is a passive flow, but it has a lot of characteristics that are similar. It has some areas, as you can see on the right of where the blue image is, that's luminol of a passive blood flow. You'll have areas that are thin, you'll have areas that are wide.
And okay, so that's taken.
Go ahead. Yeah, that image.
And that's taken from a test you did.
Yes, prior to any of this ever coming out. But I've got some more tests coming. But you can see that just from this simple that you introduced the blood. Now, I didn't paint.
Interesting.
I didn't paint this on. I introduced a single area at the very top of this blood flow, and I kept feeding that one spot with the blood and let gravity do what gravity does with liquids. And as it went down the trail, or it trailed down that surface of that tree, it narrowed down in certain areas, almost like canyons, and that would choke in, and then it would spread out, and then it choke back in, just like water will in a canyon.
Oh, sure.
and the tree bark is
Uh-huh.
just same, except that rather than being horizontal, it's vertical. And so you have that same effect. If we had it to scale, we could tell, because if this on this tree, if this blood um, transfer, stain, or passive flow, a passive flow is going to be very narrow. It's not going to be, it can be up to a ½ inch wide in certain spots depending on the bark. But if that turned out to be 2 or 3 inches wide, then of course it's not a passive flow. It's painted on. We just don't have it to scale. I have no idea exactly how wide that is there, but it has a lot of characteristics that I would expect to a passive blood flow, though.
Yeah. Interesting. Because I always kind of wondered, was this, because I'm certainly no expert, was this something that either the victim or the offender had blood on them and made contact by either resting up against the tree or, made some kind of contact with possibly some pool of blood on them, and you would kind of get that.
No, it would take more than just a simple blood stain. I've gone out and I've taken my synthetic blood that I work with, and I've painted with it on trees, and it takes
Uh-huh.
numerous dips to paint out an F, 7, 8, 9, 10 times that you have to reintroduce and go back and uh, pick up blood or synthetic blood and then transfer it. Whereas if you had a sustained open wound that's pumping blood from some type of defensive wound, like say in the web of your hand or on your thumb, and then if you grabbed a tree and it
Uh-huh.
runs down and pools and then ran down, this might be something that could occur, and I will be testing that theory
Oh,
this week. And that would,
interesting.
if you imagine that you had your thumb around a tree or you bracing yourself, and you had a
Uh-huh.
defensive wound, that yes, you would have one leg of the F, and then you'd have the
Uh-huh.
passive flow pooling, and then it could flow straight down. Not saying this is what happens, but it could. And then to get
Yeah.
the F pattern, you just pull your hand away, and just instantly, maybe 3 or 4 inches lower, you touch the tree again, and now we have a transfer, and you have an F. And I'll be testing that theory and see how accurate it is.
Interesting. A couple more questions. On these kind of lighter ones here, do you think it's possible that this could have come from like a digit?
Well, you've got your marker right now. Yes. You see, you actually even have a little blood droplet there at the bottom, teardrop down there.
Uh-huh. This one right
And
here?
uh-huh. And
Yep.
that's very interesting. That's almost like you would have a some more or additional blood, and it can come from several different things. But I'll be testing that also to see how that would occur. And but yes, that is even the top one there. You can almost see in the same area that if you went to the one right above it, that there is at the edge. You see where that teardrop is, correct?
Yep.
Where, now go straight up, keep going up, right there. It's a
Yep.
little heavy. It's still heavy there, almost on that bottom right edge again. And that's very interesting that we have that heavy blood right there at the edge on both of these. Is that and that I'll be testing that to see if that possibly is from being painted on, or would it come from a open injury?
Ooh, interesting. I didn't even think about that. Because it's rumored that Libby had some defensive wounds. It was even leaked out by David Erskine text that it looked like Libby had tried to fight back and had some damage to her fingernails and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
But
would be
the
uh-huh.
But the width of those that's coming down, those two markings, that's from basically somewhere around, looks like from uh, somewhere, if it was a dial of a face of a clock, around 2 o'clock downward to the center, that they are kind of wide. That might almost be the width of a thumb or something.
Yeah. Jelly Bean, I still think this wasn't a cult that did this. I agree. If you feel differently, we respect that too. We welcome all opinions here. We just ask that you be respectful to the other chatters and the guests. But yeah, we like to look at it all angles. But we on this channel we try to stick with the facts and build theories off the stuff that we know. But yes, we do like to talk about theories and stuff. And if you're tuning in, yes, we're going to be talking about because obviously we did recreation, dragging a body and stuff, and we wanted to wait for more people to tune in. So that's why we're starting with the F tree now, but we're going to move over to that here in a little bit. But yes, thank you, Southern True Crime. And just one thing I want to add before we move on is, our guest, if you're new to this channel or Steve's, I've got a link to his channel pinned right at the top. If you are not subscribed, please go show him some love. Forensic expert, detective. He's done it all, worn many hats, and we wouldn't be able to have this insight from Steve. So please go show him some love. And let me remove that. And so this is one thing that was also mentioned in the Freaks motion that was kind of learned. So the F was kind of around at the 4 foot from the base of the tree. Also at the bottom of or the base of the tree, they used the words there was some blood spatter at the base of the tree. So what do we have here, Steve?
That is arterial spray, and the way I created that, of course, is that you take some type of syringe or other device and with the synthetic blood. Now, each of these lines, and just out of habit, when I did this, because typically when you see arterial spray, and a lot of times it looks like a ticker tape on a wall or something. If you have someone that's injured that's running down a hallway or standing there, that it'll have it where the heart is pumping, and it'll either be declining or rising due to the heartbeat. But I went horizontal, and I can't argue because about that. What if we just had one heart pump and it was of the that was vertical rather than horizontal? And so
Okay.
we could still have that arterial spray, because each of these lines, and there's 4 lines that I did from left to right.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah. I can kind of see the pattern here.
yeah, so
Uh-huh.
those are 4 different times that I did arterial spray from left to right across the tree. So you could
Uh-huh.
take one of them actually and put vertically, and it could be arterial, just one pump, and then they moved left to right of the tree, and we didn't have it. But
Yeah.
that wouldn't explain those other features off to the side,
Interesting.
like the thumb. This wouldn't explain those markings,
Yeah.
and so, but and that's how come I'm going more towards it's possibly a some type of hand injury or and passive blood flow, or the defense is correct. We just don't know yet.
Yeah. Many theories and possibilities. Bismo, I believe it was simply a very sick individual. I agree with that, or individuals who did this. I believe it was RA, but I could see where he had help. Totally agree. There are many very odd aspects to this case, and we're going to get to that here real shortly. On this, what we got, this is kind of the last part of the F tree,
Yeah.
and well, there's one more, but
Yeah, this is
go
just
ahead, Steve.
typical blood spatter that you would see in any type of violent encounter of, of anything from gunshots to edge weapons, and there's some type of struggle, and or forces applied to blood, that you'll have blood spatter, and you have to have blood pattern analysis to determine exactly what each and what does it mean. And so when you have blood spatter generally on the ground, it can be from impacts of people having wounds, injuries, pools of blood, or an injury where someone may hit it with another object. It can come from blunt force trauma, such as someone being hit with something, and then once blood enters into the wound channel, you can have, once again, uh, spattering of blood. When the energy is applied, it turns it into, you have low velocity, mid velocity, high velocity blood spatter, and all of that is in this ground spatter here. Um, it would take hours and days and weeks for me to be able to accurately describe all
Right.
that is within just this one image.
Sure. Sure. Fun and Funky, member for 12 months. Congratulations on your 1 year anniversary. That's so awesome. Great experiments. Thank you so much, Fun and Funky, and really appreciate the support. Yeah, donations or anything you guys send in, Steve and I split. So it really helps us, you guys, with the support, with donations and stuff like that. That gets us, allow us to do what we do here. Um, so here is something that I wanted to bring to the table on this. Get your thoughts on this, and then we'll get over to the big thing. But so no, I mentioned this earlier. So here I've got a photo of just a guy resting on a tree. So I myself, I am 6'3". So I am almost a foot taller than Richard Allen. Allen is 5'4". So if, let's just say, this was some kind of contact by the offender at that area, the 4 foot area range, approximately. Now, if I were to go rest my hand or do anything against the tree, uh, just naturally, of course, I just go to a wall. I don't need to go to a tree and then just measure it. For me, 6'3", it's 5 feet. I mean, go down to like 4 feet. It's way uncomfortable. It's just not natural. My natural resting is approximately 5 feet. Where I'm getting at this is, in depending on if we knew what this was exactly from, and let's say, just in theory, that this was some kind of contact that Alan or another offender came in contact with that tree by either resting against it or kind of what you talked about earlier, would that kind of give us an idea of the offender's height if we knew if it just came from the offender? Obviously, we don't know all that. I know there's the victim aspect and they're kind of almost similar heights, but would that at least kind of give us an idea of um
It was painted on, if I'm not mistaken, with Libby's blood. I believe that's
yeah.
what.
Yeah.
Okay, so if it's painted on, I will agree with you. Yes, that's probably where, if everyone out there went up to a chalkboard and took a piece of chalk and
Yep.
started and say, okay, let's walk up the chalkboard
Yes.
and let's make a mark and vertically on the chalkboard from
Yep.
whatever position and go down. And they measured it. I'm sure it would probably, most of it would be 6 to 12 inches lower than what their height is. But this exact pose, if it's in Libby's blood, it would take, it wouldn't just be that it would be a transfer, because it takes a lot of blood to create that. They would have to dip numerous times in the blood source to get that. It wouldn't be just what you had on your hand that would create that thin line, um, unless it is an injury. And if that's Libby's blood and it is passive blood, I expect the exact stance and pose that you have pictured here would be what Libby was doing, that she had propped up against a tree after she had sustained an injury.
Right. Right. And yeah, now it's just kind of a theory. I was just like earlier today, I was like, I just want to see what my natural, if I were to just stand up
Mhm.
against the wall and just like you said, either chalk, whatever, just rest against, what would be my average
Mhm.
height, and mine is about 5 feet, a little bit, about 5'2".
Yeah.
Um, and then this is the F tree is about situated at 4 feet, so I
Mhm.
think that gives us an idea.
Yeah.
Kind of
And if it's painted on, absolutely neither one of the victims, Libby or Abby, would have painted on. So it would be something that the offender would have to do. If it's
Sure.
a if it's a passive blood flow from an injury, then of course it has to be Libby. That's the only two choices we have here.
Right. And yeah, and I meant to pull that up as we were talking, but yeah, just an example. I don't know if this guy's 6'3", but this is just kind of an example that if he was 6'3", this would be at 5 feet, and then if this was at 4 feet and a similar thing, assuming Richard Allen's approximately 5'4", that's a foot difference, it would all line up pretty much, more or less. So just an interesting theory. All right, now to the video. And then we're going to break this down. We'll play this and we'll pause at certain spots. Steve, just let me know. I'll let you kind of run this. I'll play, and
Sure.
if you talk, I'll pause.
Okay.
But this is, I think this is amazing.
Yeah, I had set up the control test. Fortunately, the wind was very similar to what the day of the discovery of the victims would have been, and I think there's 1 mile an hour difference. I think at the time they were discovered, historically, it showed 14 mile an hour winds. When I was doing this test going into the wooded area, which is in Georgia,
Okay.
and the wind conditions here were 13 mile an hour. Outside the forested area, you can see the trees and leaves blowing. But I went in and I found me an area of undisturbed leaves and marked off 25 foot. You can see the yellow tape there on the edge. And
I
then
see you have
originally,
measuring tape.
that's 25 feet of measuring tape laid out from that along that course. I did that to see how difficult it would be to move someone
Okay.
of with a certain weight. Now, originally I was going to build mannequins, but when I spoke to Mrs. Steve, my wife, she said, "Well, why don't we just do it with someone, an actual person?" And I said, "Okay." I'm very fortunate that I have Mrs. Steve that will embrace these things, and she did. And so, but the purpose of this is not only to see how long it takes to move a person through a wooded, uneven area across this with ground cover, but what marks would you expect to see if a person was dragged through leaves? And also what patterns or discoloration to their clothing or injuries to their skin that the person being dragged would sustain, because each surface, regardless if it's the victim or the earth or the ground cover, there's going to be markings transferred from one to the other. And that's what all this testing was about, to evaluate that. And so Mrs. Steve got laid down on the ground. I put her in her fresh, brand new Tyvek suit.
Tyvek suit.
And then I drug her for 25 feet. And I'm through that, I have a little bit better understanding. I'm a big fella, you know, and I'm 60 years old now, but I'm not in my prime. But she's not that difficult to move. But what the average man could do, it would be extremely difficult. Now, I wouldn't be able to pull her up out of the, if we was at the actual crime scene, I wouldn't have been able to get her up out of the creek. I could have moved her across the plateau, but I wouldn't have been able to get her up out of that creek.
Yes. And here I slow motion it, and I'm sorry for the lag. I don't know why. Everything says we're all good, but unfortunately, there is a little bit of.
It may be our cameras. You can probably stop the cams and leave your voice on, is what I usually do. Cut down some of the.
Let's see.
Yeah, you just. Yeah, you're there. It's just that you turn your cam off.
There we go.
That,
all right. So one thing I noticed is that just from you dragging her, you really don't see, you see a bit of a trail, but it's not very distinct.
It's not. It was extremely difficult. You had to look for, if you weren't looking for certain disturbances of some of the limbs or some of the leaves or maybe a rock that got under her heels, uh, that and fresh earth was uh, turned up, you wouldn't know that there was a drag pattern down through there.
Fascinating. And yeah, it just goes to show that sorry, getting a lag there. Um that yeah, this crime scene. So here is just to kind of remind people, obviously you're in Georgia. This is a photo of the actual crime scene. We got the crime scene tape. We can see the environment's really close to what your the environment you were working with. Very heavy, thick leaves with some branches. And let me continue the video here. But yeah, I noticed when you were dragging her, there was no leaves.
Yeah. I went back and photographed. There was only two or three really good disturbances along that 25 foot. Then I went and uh, pulled her reverse by her ankles with her shoulder, uh, where her shoulders and her back was in contact and her feet were lifted. It's far easier to drag someone in that manner than it was to drag them by lifting a majority of their weight. And but it left a different, distinct drag pattern, although it still wasn't easily distinguishable. But it was,
Yeah.
like I said, it was
Okay.
just something to check out.
Okay, Steve, stick with me. I'm gonna back out real quick and see if this will fix it. So I'm gonna remove myself all.
I don't know. Yeah, he removed himself, guys. Man, I don't know if I'm still active or not. Yeah, unearthed secrets. I just turned my camera off, but um, can y'all hear me?
Back. Let's see.
You know, on your bar, you don't have the ability to just stop the cam only.
I I'm pretty sure I do. Let me see now. I just reset it. I mean, I have top internet. Everything on YouTube's end is good. So I'm just wondering if StreamYard's having some issues. So now it's just fine.
Okay. Yeah, because
Um,
we
I
don't
think
have
I
all
just
the
needed to
screen.
back out and come back in.
Okay,
Uh,
so maybe everything will work now.
yeah, I mean, you sound 100% better now. I think you can come back on.
Okay.
Yeah, here we go. All right. Yeah, we just need to reset. That happens. Happens to the best of us. Okay. I've got to reset this up here. Okay, so we were back at the entire screen. There we go. Okay, we're back where we were at. Let me play that one more time. I won't pause it because I know it was laggy. Um, here we go. Let's see. Yeah, now it's playing 100% better. Okay,
Okay.
that's much better.
But during this, like I said, I sent you some images of what the transfers of to the back of the Tyvek suit, the bunny suit that Mrs. Steve was wearing.
Yeah,
And
I'll have that. Uh huh.
so that not only would you see what law enforcement will look for on the clothing to see if they were dragged, but also that if they had no clothing, what type of injuries, scratches, marks would they have received from ground debris?
Oh, right. Especially if they were dragged derobed,
Yes.
you would probably
Yeah.
experience some rash or yeah, whatever. Um, right.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, there's transfers each way. You know that as you go through that ground debris over those sticks, rocks, and I didn't clean it up any. I left everything as natural. The only thing that I went through, I removed some of the thorn bushes and things so that Mrs. Steve wouldn't be creating any blood pattern.
Right, right.
We didn't need any of that out there.
Danny, was her shoes on or removed? They were removed, but I have a theory about that. I'm glad you brought that up, Danny, because I have a theory. I haven't talked to Steve about it yet because I wanted to surprise him. Not to say that he probably hasn't thought about this, but I'm excited. I have a theory. I'm building a theory on the whole picture because it's something I've never really uh, kind of looked at because there's just so many things that are just odd, just as Ives and many others have talked about. It's a weird crime scene, but I have some ideas that I can't wait to share with Steve. So what right here you've got the drone flying,
Uh-huh.
and now you go ahead
This
and
part,
explain.
this part of the test was to show and demonstrate. When we did the mannequins, of course, we laid out the limbs, and I wanted to recreate this one section, not so much to create the pattern accurately or that, but to see how long that the FBI mentioned in their original affidavit for the search warrant of the Logan property that they thought that this is something that an offender would want to memorialize, and so they were looking for a lot of digital um, uh, possibility of something being photographed or digitally um, collected, such as with cell phone or otherwise. So I wanted to lay it out to see how long it would do that, and of course we know from our previous test that it doesn't take a long time to create this um, pattern of limbs.
Yeah.
And then I went and got the camera and walked around taking pictures to see how long it would take for an offender who might want to memorialize it and keep that as part of a trophy. There's a lot of offenders throughout history that have done such, including BTK, and so that was part of this test that we, uh, and the reason I did this section.
Yeah, and the one thing I noticed, is I had a feeling that when this person or offender or offenders was doing this, that the logs were not going to quite cooperate, and it wasn't going to be some exact thing, because when you're starting to stack logs on top of logs or branches, whatever you want to call them, they're going to kind of roll depending on because you're not laying them on a flat surface,
Mm-hmm.
and each time you're laying one on, you're going to have some shift as well, because I noticed there's a couple of times where the stick kind of shift.
Well, yeah, I was moving it and
Sure.
trying to get it as similar, but not exact, but similar to what it was. And I hit Mrs.
Yeah.
Steve. I lifted one log up or one stick, and it hit her in the throat.
Oh
But
no.
once I got them up there, they pretty well stayed. And but like I said, I was just doing this for a time to see how long it would take me to memorialize, walk around, get me 4 or 5 pictures of as possibly maybe an offender might do.
Yes. And thank you, Unearthed Secrets. Good to see you. Don't forget to hit that like button. And yes, if you guys would like us to continue doing this, please consider supporting us by donations or anything like that. We spend a lot of time putting this stuff together. And here, oh, this one's, I wanted to slow this down because I know we wanted to see the two differences because you dragged her by her torso first, and then I wish I could have slowed this down, but I'll play this back again because I asked you this before the show. And here's you dragging her by her feet.
Yes,
Uh,
it's far easier. I could have. The reason I didn't continue on is my drone was flying
just
right
right
behind me.
back there. Sure.
Yeah, and I didn't
So
want to run into it.
what was easier? I know I've asked you this before the show, but what was easier, feet
Dragging
or
by the feet is far easier. You're not lifting as much of the body mass. You're not having to keep that uh, probably 70% of their weight off the ground, and you're only having probably uh, having to keep 30% of their weight off the ground. And so it's far easier to drag by the feet than it was by the shoulders.
right? And so now you've kind of got her covered up a little bit.
Yeah, I throw
Any
some leaves on her just to see what, because the wind was blowing in there. That you'll be able to see the limbs and the leaves blowing up around my waist high, and you'll see in the background. But they weren't moving the leaves on the ground. You can see the shadows of the trees. You see the shadows on the ground
Uh-huh.
changing. That's due to the wind. And so,
Right.
but you can see
Yep.
that the leaves aren't blowing across or off of her. Um,
So, so I guess basically, in a nutshell, the wind speeds, if they were about the same, probably wouldn't made much of a difference on
no,
the
no,
bodies.
no,
So
no, no.
that's interesting. That's
It is
interesting.
because there's been a lot of speculation about that.
Yes, because as I talked about a couple times in my last couple of shows, that what was felt to be mentioned in the or Frank's motion. Now, keep in mind this is hearsay or whatever you want to call it, but in the David Esron text, the volunteer that had found the girls, everything that he described in those texts, which is probably like one of the first leaks ever to come out from the Delphi case. Everything that he said has been verified at some point or another. The wounds, one girl being nude, one being clothed, and the other thing was that he said when he discovered the bodies that Libby's top half was covered with leaves. So it makes me wonder if that was the ideas he was trying to cover them and didn't want to just have leaves because that would kind of look suspicious. You just have these two piles of leaves. But if you added some sticks and branches, it would look a little more uh, in sync with the environment, um, per se. But maybe just didn't get time to cover Abby, which I've also kind of shared some theories on why that could have occurred. Um, when dragging her by her feet, where her back is being pulled, could you notice a little bit more difference on the drag? Could you tell if there was a trail?
No, there really wasn't. There was only one area that was dragged clear, so there wasn't much difference. It's almost that if you weren't absolutely looking and for that uh, drag trail, you wouldn't see it,
Right, right.
which
Uh,
was surprising because I thought that would be far more um, of a trail that would be clearly viewed, but it's not. As you can see there, that's where she was at, and I pulled her out from each side. That is the framework of those limbs for where she was at, and you can see that the ground isn't exposed, but for one little, probably 4 or 5 inch little circle.
right.
This is the trail afterwards, and I went back the next day to see to simulate.
Oh, this is what this is. Okay, I was wondering what was going on. Okay.
Yeah, I went back the next day because uh, if there was drag trails, drag marks, they would from the time that Doug Carter says that the homicides occurred, and then we go and they're found approximately 21 hours later. So I wanted to go and see 21 hours later what would that drag trail look like, and that's what this is.
Yeah.
And because whereas when you have the recent drag, any of the exposed dirt still has moisture in it. On the next day, you could see in certain areas where the dirt got flipped over, it was drier and there was more of a grayish tint to the dirt that was dry. And it stood out a little bit. I have those images or at least one of those images in my show I did the other night.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if I sent that to you or not.
I don't think so, but I get understanding what you're showing here is so this is the next day, and
Yes.
honestly, it just looks
Yeah. Yeah.
just normal. I mean, you wouldn't have known that you were dragging your lovely wife, who was awesome to volunteer and do that. And that's amazing that she was she was what a trooper.
She is. Absolutely.
What a
Um,
trooper. Shout out to Mrs. Steve, Andrea. That's so awesome. Thank you for doing that. That is, I mean, that's awesome. Because we were talking about mannequins, but you can't really replicate the weight with the man. I mean, I guess you could get really close.
mhm. And that's the thing is that you take Mrs. Steve, and Mrs. Steve is 5'10". She's a former basketball player, very
Uh,
athletic, great BMI, body mass index, and so um, and I was able that you know lifting her weight, which is in between what Libby is reported to being, and what Abby is, it still gave me a fair representation of what to expect. And
sure.
if you're holding up that weight that you may only have, that you're only dragging 30 or 40 pounds of weight across those leaves, you still would think that it would be exposing a lot of dirt. That wasn't the case. That those leaves, they just stayed in place and you went across them. It didn't bunch up like I thought it would, like when you rake leaves.
Yeah, because you see a little bit there between her feet, kind of collected a little bit, but other than that, it just yeah. And if you look with a fine tooth comb, you can and I did it with my other show. We kind of zoomed in here, and you kind of see the feet indents a little bit, but especially now knowing that last little bit. I wish I would have known that because then I would have done it before and after the show, but that's okay. I will remake that, but yeah, just you would never have known.
But
So,
then also when I approached the tree behind me, right when I laid Mrs. Steve down, I
uh-huh.
wanted to see how close I could get to that tree and how far her head and
Oh
arms
yeah,
would be. And I was able to get relatively close. I mean, we were within that you don't have to drag them, that when you're lifting them up, you've got them at 90 degrees at the hip bend. And so you get 2 or 3 feet away from the tree, and then you just lay them there, and their head will be right at the base of the tree, such
right.
as
Because
what
they're
was described, as was described by the defense. And so that worked out, and I think more than likely that's exactly what happened. That
interesting. Yeah, because if you're dragging them by their feet, and if her head's the tree, her head's
yeah,
point towards the tree, and if you dragged her by her feet, then you would have to,
yeah, you'd
you
have to do
know,
some type of rotation.
right. Yep. Um, So moving on to some theories that I can't wait to show you guys. Excited about Bama seeing, in my opinion, a deep drag trail from kicking to get away. Um,
We didn't try miss. We didn't have any. We didn't try any of those type of struggles or any of that. I just did it under the that they were incapacitated, unconscious representation.
yeah,
But there's always a possibility I can get Mrs. Steve redressed and
sounds like a trooper, but yeah, I think you'd be right, Bama. If they were not incapacitated, they would probably it would be more pronounced and be trying to fight and claw and do whatever they could to get away from the offender. But thank you so much for the membership for 5 months. The support means everything. Like I said, this channel can't run without you guys. So thank you guys so much. Please shout out Bama for the support. Southern Gal True Crime. Thank you both for your dedication to these victims. Thank you so much for the $5 and the support. Like I said, me and Steve split this stuff when we have them on, so everything helps. We can't do this without the support, but we got more. And let me put that right there. Okay, so let me find it here. So I've got some interesting things to show you and ask you, Steve. Where did we go here? Okay, I think it's okay. So, I think let's probably start with this one. And I'm going to kind of explain for those that may not understand where the crime scene and everything and where kind of stuff was found. just kind of going with all the stuff that we've learned throughout the years, the Frank's motion and the search warrant. Every little piece is giving us little puzzle pieces. But one thing that we talked about when you just completed this, you said that there could be possibly two offenders. Obviously, there is adrenaline is a key factor. So, and I've heard some extraordinary feats that have been done with adrenaline. With one guy that he sadly took a girl's life. They were both adults. He drove her to a bridge. He pulled her out. First, he put her in the trunk. And I think he ended up breaking something or spraying in something while doing that, putting her in the trunk. And then he got her out of the trunk. And then he was ended up tossing her over the bridge. But the first attempt, he didn't quite do it. And I can't remember either he broke his leg or his arm in the first attempt. I don't think he realized it at the time. And then the second time he got her sadly and threw her off the bridge. Very tragic. But the moral is that obviously he was under adrenaline and literally broke something in the process and was still able to get this girl over, a bridge. He had to get her over like a barrier to toss her over. But you thought you were kind of sharing with me that if they came from the creek, so let's say they were their lives were taken near the creek, you believe that this would suggest a possibility that there'd be more than one offender.
This is the way I approached it. That the further that from the images that have been released, and we don't know how accurate the images are. We don't know what generation we have. We don't know as they've been passed along through whoever had them prior to where they've wound up. We don't even know if they're actually correct. But the images that we have, that if that's the location, the closer that law enforcement can place the homicides to where the FBI says that there was some posing and staging and movement of the victims, that means anywhere from 6 inches to 600 yards. Who knows? But the further away you get from that position, the more likely it would take another offender. I believe that anywhere on that plateau, that if Libby and Abby crossed that creek under their own power and climbed up that embankment on their own power, and the homicides occurred on that plateau where the bodies were found, located, and that a lone wolf could do it. If you take them off that plateau and put them in the creek, and they have to be lifted and moved up there, I would believe it would take more than one offender.
Interesting. Lori, hasn't it been said that they were brought to the tree after? So we don't know the exact details. We know that one thing that's been mentioned for a couple of years now, and I think it maybe started. Well, I think we've known it before, but it was kind of in the Ron Logan search warrant that the bodies were moved and staged. So that's kind of what we're going off of. And then you go with where items were found, which I'm going to bring up next, and kind of start to paint a picture of my theory, which I'm kind of excited to show about. And let's see, I'm new here. Murray, thank you so much. I am new here, but never heard of the Odinism before. My head was mashed when I learned a lot. Learned of it. Thank you for welcoming me. Thank you so much, Murray, for tuning in. We appreciate everybody taking their time out of their day to watch the show. You guys are so awesome. So, let me explain a little bit about the crime scene a little bit more. Since we both kind of have an idea of the crime scene a little bit more than we did before. So here on the left, we have Georgia. Now, where I have the F is just kind of showing, and I'll get to what my theory is, but just say, for example, this is where the F was, because they said the F tree is, nearby. They don't say how many feet or yards. They make it sound it's close, but we don't know if it's 5 feet, 10 feet, 15 feet, but nearby. On the right is Delphi, just to show you guys how close. Obviously it's pretty much the same kind of environment that you did this amazing control test. But let's see. One thing that I wondered is, so why did the offender drag the bodies away? Especially, let's say if Libby was attacked at this F tree, why would he have dragged her from the F tree away from that? And so, and then also, yeah, let me move on real quick. Let me go back to that, Steve. I'll come back to that. But why were they moved in stage? Here is a picture of the crime scene inside the crime scene. So we have the tape here, and oh, why is it not moving forward?
You're lagging again.
Oh, am I? Okay, let me back out. Okay.
Okay.
That's better. Okay. All right, going back to it. Pull this up. All right. Let's see. Where did we leave off? Okay. So just explaining the surroundings of the crime scene. We'll get your thoughts here, Steve. Okay. So here, what we're looking at is, and I'm going to show you a video here in a second. But the cameraman is standing close to the river. What we're looking at right here, if you can see my mouse, this is not due north, but we'll just to make it easy. This is north. This over here is east. To our left would be west, and obviously we're standing behind us would be south where the creek is at. Okay. So do you notice what's on the ground on the southern section of this square? Do you notice something, Steve? Here, let me.
Oh yeah.
So, do you notice? Here's a better. You see the differences between the
Yeah.
two sections here.
Yes.
So we've got all this more weeded area, less leaves, less maybe about the same sticks, but less leaves, much different environment. Whereas the northern section is completely different, more thick leaves. And I kind of have a theory. So here's just kind of from the Google Earth. Here's just kind of, and I know this is not directly due north. This would be due north, but just to make it simple. So here's north. So we've got this kind of grass weeded area here. The brown northern section is the heavy leaves area. All right. And then we got the west, east side, south is where the creek is at. So let me show you guys a video just to give you a little bit better idea of the crime scene. And I have a theory. So here's Ron Logan walking down. He's coming from the north side. Right now, this is a slow motion. From what I just showed you, he's on the southern side. He's now panning from the east going to the north. Notice it's literally like two sections in this crime scene. We've got one section that is really just weeded area. The northern section is leaves. And then we're going to get a view from the northern side. So same thing, just on the north side, we're panning from the west and we're panning south to east. Notice much different, heavy, thick leaves area. We can kind of see that little border in the middle where we got the weeded area in the middle. So in that box, of that crime scene box, we've got kind of a 50-50. We've got the weeded area with less leaves. I'm sure they're there, but they're probably just kind of, not as thick. Then we got the northern section that's heavy, more leaves. So, could it be possible that the reason, and so let's just say this is, for example, the F tree. Now, I'm not saying this is where the F tree is at, um, but let's just say this was the F tree, and let's just say, in theory, this is where, at the very least, Libby was attacked, right? She went down, she was incapacitated. Um, and then maybe Abby somewhere nearby, just as a possibility. Is it possible? And let me know what you think, Steve. Is the reason that they were moved and staged is because they went down somewhere in this weeded kind of area, and he wanted to bring him to the northern section to conceal them with leaves and branches.
Anything is possible. Now I can tell you, I've been there, and even it's a little bit different, but there's still a lot of leaves in that.
Oh
There's
yeah,
not, yeah,
yeah,
but there could have been that may have been, and he was interrupted, and now the test that we did dragging. If they were carried, and we have to also consider that they may have not been dragged; they may have been carried,
sure,
and if they're carried, that brings on a whole new aspect of how can you lift a unconscious person. Of course, if you, I believe you brought up that he was in the National Guard at some point, and there are certain types of carries, such as Ranger roll, fireman carries, and just because you know how to do them, you still have to have a certain amount of strength, and because the average person, even just because you know how to do something doesn't mean that you're able to do it. Um, but if they were carried, I just want to make sure that we get that out there, that we're not saying they were absolutely dragged from this position to that, because
sure,
they been carried, and that's how come there's no drag marks. We don't know what's at that crime marks everywhere. We just don't know it, or they could be absolutely signs that they were carried. We just don't know it. But
sure.
if I was going along your line of thinking that, oh, uh, 20 feet over here to the side, there's a bunch of limbs and a bunch of leaves, I
Yep,
can conceal a person far more rapidly there than here, then
sure.
absolutely, I'm 100% on board with you.
Yep. And also, to kind of double down on that is because, let's just say, in theory, this is an Odinism, and he was just trying to cover him up. It would look a little weird if you had these two little piles of logs and leaves in this area, whereas it would look more natural in the northern section. Just to kind of double down on that. Glenna Trogdon Trogdon. Sorry, I butchered that. Glenna, thank you so much for the $4.99. I'm so sorry if I butchered that. I really appreciate the support. That means the world to us. We can't do what we do without your guys' support. So thank you so much. Please show Glenna some love in the chat. Um, and we will get to some questions as well. But I also have a theory with the clothes and stuff, and where maybe things went down. Just a theory, obviously, doesn't mean it's fact. So remind some people, if you're a little bit newer to this case, because there is many confusing aspects, and even I am certainly no expert to this case. This is a case that I am obviously intrigued by, just because of how just odd it is. But so Abby's clothing was found in the most of her clothing was found in the creek, what we understand, along with Libby's shoe. Now, I think her shoes play a huge part in my theory on this. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, Steve. But from what we understand, is that the clothing and Libby's shoe was kind of found in the creek just south of the crime scene, kind of sitting there. This is all just approximate. This is not exact. Um, and then you have Libby's shoe, her other shoe. So you got one in the creek, and you have the other one that's by the bodies. So, as I have here in red, um, the two questions is where did they where were they derobed? Was it near the creek or was it near the crime scene? And could Libby's shoe possibly be the clue to that answer? So I'll share, and then I'm kind of curious to get your thoughts on this. Okay, so here we're at the sadly the final resting spot, the crime scene. We got Libby to our right. We got Abby to our left here. But what's under Abby is Libby's shoe, and under Libby's shoe is Libby's phone. Both of those are under Abby's left side, so they're somewhere under here. Could it be possible? And then also we have the bullet, the unspent bullet that's sitting in the middle. So is it possible? We know that when he was approaching them on the bridge, that they could hear a gun cock. That was in the probable cause. So he'd already cycled the gun once, right, Steve? So that means he's got one now in the chamber. So he cycled the gun once. Could it be that this area was the original spot where he had them derobe, uh, and to get them to comply, he cycled the gun again, causing the bullet to eject. They derobed. As Libby was derobing, she didn't want him to find the phone. She put the phone in one of her shoes, and then from there, there's a lot of possibilities, but I think if they were derobed, just one theory that they would have derobed here, and that's why the unspent bullet was there because because if they were, why would this bullet be there if they're already? If he's dragging them over there. Why would that unspent bullet be there? I mean, why would he
Well,
cycle his gun when they're already incapacitated?
now, are you saying they were derobed um, uh, after
Alive. So
a
he had the
homicide,
gun on him.
or
He's
were
like,
they alive? Are you saying they're alive at that point during the disrobing, or after the homicide?
yes. So they're alive. He's
All right. If
yes.
they're
He's
alive at that
they're alive.
point,
So even though this is where they were found,
okay. All right. If you're saying they're alive, then we have minimal. There's no movement. Then we have to, we absolutely almost have to have that wherever the F tree is. He would have had to come back and get that. If this is the where they were disrobed at, this exact location, then the movement of
yeah.
them would have just been a matter of inches or feet. It's not 20
So
feet, not 50 feet.
sorry, there's a little bit lag. So I'm sorry, Steve. Go ahead.
But no, I'm just saying that if this is that they were under their own power and got to this location while they were alive, and they're forced to do what you're saying they were forced to do, that he's threatening them and rack the firearm and cycle the firearm to get another round out, then the movement of them is less than just 3 or 4 feet. And so, of course, you wouldn't have any drag marks, you wouldn't have anything. And 3 or 4 feet is a lot different than we have them being moved from the creek or otherwise.
Yep. Okay. Let me set myself again, Steve. I don't know why it just keeps doing this. Okay, that's better. I don't know why. Thank you,
Mhm.
StreamYard. Uh, I don't know why. I'm hardwired in. I pay top dollar for my internet, and I got a new system here. So I don't know, just some weird things with but no, so no, you make a great argument, but I'm gonna give you another counter argument to this.
Okay.
And I was thinking about this and I'm like, this seems really silly. So let me get to the full picture here, but you know, if StreamYard would cooperate and not lag us, it would help. Apologize, but it's out of my control here. Okay, so my theory was that he'd forced them to derobe here, and possibly from there, that's when Libby might have went to attack Richard and told Abby to run. So Abby started to book it, or they both tried to book it, and then he caught up to him. But like I said, when she was derobing, she put her phone in her shoe, or they derobed by the creek. But this is the thing: is is how did the phone get over there? Does that mean that she's derobed, carrying this phone around without him being able to see? So that's my argument to that. Like where area where they derobed? To me, it'd make more sense they were derobed around this area, and she probably tried to put that phone in the shoe. Versus if they're derobed at the creek, clearly this phone, it wasn't Alan or the offender that brought that phone over there. How'd that phone get over there?
Well, if you're saying that this is that they're, are you still saying that they're brought back alive, or is this the point of homicide?
Both, but I'm saying, they were derobed here, but
Okay.
then they probably tried to make another secondary run for it, or maybe Libby attacked Richard to try to get Abby some time to escape, because they knew, something terrible was going to happen. And that's
Mhm.
why, things did get shifted over back maybe by the F tree, and then they came back. Like I said, it's just a theory.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and that's the part about the speculation that we just don't know. We don't know because we have blood spatter at the F tree. We have the markings of the blood stain, whatever the F is, that we don't understand. We know that the F tree is somewhere. Is it 10 feet away or is it 100 feet away? And and so we don't know. But for that bullet to be found between them, and
yeah.
then we have clothing there, it it would put me more towards that the F tree, the bullet, and the victims are all within a 10 or 15, 20-foot area right here. I
Hmm.
don't
Yeah.
and so I don't think that the crime scene, even the crime scene tape, is indicative that it's a very limited crime scene. It's not
Sure.
hundreds of yards away.
Yeah.
So from just this speculation of me that we have a bullet here, that bullet got there either during a struggle or during some type of intimidation. And
Yep.
the only reason you would be intimidating is there's some bad things going on right here.
Yep.
And so I would tend to believe that the lone wolf pattern is that it all happened within 10, 15, 20 feet here, which
Yep.
is more towards the lone wolf. And that's how
Yep.
come I stay away from it, even with that, you know, uh, there's speculation that down in the creek or across the creek, and then they moved there. And I don't think that's the case because there's no need to be racking a firearm if you've transferred the victims here
Yeah.
and they're deceased.
Yeah.
Why would you
Yeah.
need to rack or stage shoot? Now, staging and posing, there's a lot of reasons that you can move people there. But I don't
Sure.
think that's how come one of the reasons I only moved Mrs. Steve 25 feet. I think it's very limited the amount of movement.
Sure. Totally agree. Totally agree. Um, but yeah, I was just racking my brain because I mean, yeah, there's just so many more aspects that obviously it's just theorize, and we'll get to some comments here. Sorry, but I just wanted because there was a lot of this aspect to um, this here. But I just find this phone in the shoe very interesting, and was it possible that Libby, because clearly really smart, brave girl, they both were, and did she try to slip as she was maybe forced to derobe? She slipped that phone in the shoe to hide it, And then sadly, it just kind of got under the leaves, and everything else, the offenders got tossed, in the creek afterwards. But that shoe, just luckily, I guess, was over Abby, or under Abby. Um, but yeah, to me, just thinking about if they were derobed at the creek,
Yeah.
clearly this phone had to have made it,
Yeah.
another 50 yards, excuse me, 40 to 50 feet. Her carrying it around,
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible, but to
Yeah.
me, yeah,
I'm more that everything happened within 15 or 20 or 30
yeah,
feet of where they're found.
sure, yep,
More that's the simplest and easiest, and we all know that's usually the way it is. Whatever the simplest definition or the culmination of the facts, that is the explanation.
yeah. Um, Okay, so let me get to some comments here. More Candy, thank you so much for becoming a member and supporting this channel. That means the world. We do a lot here. We have tons of member only content. I have a Patreon, and then also we have Steve. I've got a link to his channel. If you're just tuning in, let me just remind you guys, if you're new to mine or Steve's, and if you're not subscribed to Steve's channel, please go show him some love and support. We wouldn't be able to do these tests without him. And the link is right at the top, and it's also in the description if you're rewatching this. Pammy, thank you so much for the $20. You are so awesome. Thank you so much for the support. Please show Pammy some love in the chat, and I'm gonna try to get some comments here because there's quite a bit. And we'll play, just recap a little bit. We're going a little bit better speed than I thought we were, even though we experienced some minor lag issues. Why were the girls' clothes off? Maybe it was a situation that was going to lead to something SA, but then the girls maybe fought back and he panicked or they panicked, whatever. So many theories. Camilla agrees. Libby hid that phone. I think so. She hid the phone from him seeing it on the bridge. I think there's a lot more to what Libby did than we probably will maybe ever know. Um, and if you have some questions for Steve, please put them in. We'll try to get them in here. Yes, and that's the weird thing. Abby had Libby's clothes on. That is the weird, strange. What's your thoughts on that, Steve? I mean, you think it's possible one person? I mean, I think it's possible. It probably takes some time.
Well, anytime you have anyone that's disrobed and re-robed and or redressed, there's certain motivational factors of of the offender's mind, and it can be of the SA, um, and mathematically, statistically, that's what it is. But
Yeah.
and but whatever is feeding this monster's fantasies, and whatever made him do what he did, trying to rationalize it in our world of through a rational mind
Right.
is impossible, because
Right.
he created this scene. He placed them, if we go by what the FBI said, and if you go by even what the attorneys, the defense attorneys said, that there was certain staging, posing, and a ritual. And I agree. When you look at those sticks, if
Uh-huh.
they're true, if they're accurate, if they're fair, accurate depiction of the scene, that I believe that they were um, some type of ritual, not the ritual as far as being pagan or odinist,
Uh-huh.
but in
Some
the
kind of
world of law
signature?
enforcement, ritual and signature is
One
slash
in this.
one and the same.
Oh,
That
okay.
that as a signature, you're going to go through a certain ritual that's in addition to what it took to cause and and uh, and commit a homicide,
Uh-huh.
and you do additional things to feed your own sick whatever your fantasy, and to mark and to show the world, look what I did. This is mine. I'm gonna sign this check, and
Sure.
and which is more towards a serial offender, either early in his career or there's other victims out there that have that. But there's a lot of things that, and that's just my opinion, my speculation.
Sure.
Um, of what I've seen and my 2 cents on it.
Um, no, and that's all we can do. But it's definitely possible. Sorry, I'm getting some weird feedback there. Of course, things just can't go smooth when on this StreamYard. Sorry, I'm just checking. I might have to reset it one more. Yeah, it's acting funny again. I might have to redo it. The F tree was the tree Libby was reaching to. No, no, that was a different tree. The F tree is, we don't know exactly where. It's just worded that the F tree is nearby, but no, it is not the same tree. Good to see you, Sleuth. Good stuff. Thank you so much. Glad to see you here. Sleuth also covers Delphi daily. Great insight. Oh my gosh, it pops up now. That's what I was looking for. I'm so glad StreamYard fixed that. That's so awesome. Thank you so much, Sleuton, for gifting a membership. That is so awesome. All the support we can get. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Dem Rogers, member for 1 month. Please hit that like button for this amazing crew. Thank you so much, Dem Rogers. Thank you. Really appreciate it. And yes, Abby's clothes were in the water. Um, Zoo Blues, you're amazing, Steve. So dedicated and informative. It's so intriguing to see. Oh, yes. It's always an honor to have Steve on. But yeah, I want to play this one more time just to show you guys. So, like I said, just in theory, like I said, we don't know if this is where the F tree was at, but this was just something. I went through all the archive footage that I could find, and I probably still haven't gone through all of it or found all of it. But I noticed, a lot of it was interviews with Ron Logan, and so I had to kind of like piece together because they're all cut up, and then some of them got these darn banners across them, so you can't see everything. But it's really just trying to get an idea of this box, and I just kind of noticed that there was really like two sections to this crime scene area, and that was this little weeded area to the south section, and then what's really more a lot of the rest of that area is the more foliage, leaves, sticks. Not to say that they're not there on this area here, but in my opinion, just if it was they were trying to hide it, it would make sense that they would try to bring him to an area that's they can quickly hide the
Well, that's one
bodies.
thing that there's an argument about that. If you're creating a signature, why would you hide it? That you would want it to be recognized. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't have, you know, the, that he knows law enforcement that if both victims, and we have no idea if leaves were used at all or if not, there's some um, uh, storyline out there that someone's that was part of the search team said that some leaves were used. We just don't know how much was used to conceal or even if that is true. So, and if you do have a signature, why would you cover it up? And so there are so many confusing parts about this that once trial gets here, if it does, if there's not some type of otherwise, that the details will all be hidden forever or concealed or um, uh, ever how the court wishes to control the information that
Yeah.
sealed. We may not know all the facts ever. I hope we do, but uh, from looking at the images I saw, I do not think that he would have moved them to conceal them. I think that they were um, each of them have a pattern of those limbs on them that
Uh
is
huh.
very similar. majority wise, not totally, but the majority wise, there is a lot of similarities, and so I do think that in that those limbs are not random; they were placed independently on each of the victims.
You think, like we just said earlier, some kind of signature for this guy or offenders?
It's a ritual, no doubt. It's a ritual. I just don't know what it means. Only he knows what it means and why.
Yeah. You bring up a great point, Jessica. What if the shoe was dragged under Abby? It possible, but if they were declothed, well, I guess okay. If you dragged them, I'm assuming the clothes came off before they were attacked. I mean, what do you think, Steve? I mean, do we
Um,
do we have an idea?
well, we would be able, if we had the actual photographs, and when we say attack and what type of injuries or what type of restraints are being used,
Yeah.
because you can be restrained and you can be undressed while live with certain um, threats,
Uh,
and then you can be restrained, and then injuries can occur because the defense makes reference to the lack of certain body fluids and blood being on the clothing, and that they're unnaturally cleaned and absent of blood. And there has to be a reason for that. And for the clothes not to have that transfer or
yeah.
have a lot of blood on them, then that has to mean that during a large part of this um, uh, encounter and this assault, that the clothing was separate from the victims.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I could see, yeah, because if you're dragging a body, I could see a shoe coming off. I see what you're trying to point out. But yeah, it's definitely possible. Um, and I think to me, I just with the phone and the shoe being found together. Obviously, we don't know if the phone was actually in the shoe. It just says that the shoe is under Abby, and then under Abby was the phone. So I just trying to kind of thinking, just kind of outside the box or whatever you want to call it, just theorizing. Is it possible that when they were derobing, she stuffed that phone in the shoe because that was kind of possibly their last lifeline, and she didn't want the offender to find it, and so it just kind of stayed there. And then with the bullet being there, obviously that was cycled in that area, right, Steve? I mean,
Yeah.
I doubt that bullet got was sitting 15 feet away and got moved over there. I
Yes.
mean, that bullet came out, landed, got probably lost under the leaves because it was. They said it was buried under leaves. That's
And just like we
defense's
did on the
word.
Murdoch thing, where would you have to stand to cycle that gun to eject that round? And how far would it eject through the hand cycling?
Yeah,
And it can be from 1 foot, just depends, to 5 or 6 feet. But but I think, like I said, with the bullet being there, the shoes being there, the phone being there, that we have different parts from different individuals. We have a bullet from the offender at this area, and we have clothing articles there, and we have our victims there. So a large part of this had to be within a circle of this. And so this is ground zero from that. But where is the F tree, and how far is movement? And so
yeah,
I, if it's more than 20 feet across this circle, I will be surprised.
yeah. USA Libertarian. I'm guessing he wanted to get them out of sight. The creek is fairly visible. That's true too. That's very true. Yeah, because the south side is what's close to the creek. So obviously on this picture to the right, we're looking kind of, we'll just say south. It's not due south, but so, and as we talked about, here this is the north section where the crime scene tape is, and so we got this little square here, and then half of it is that more weeded area, less leafy, and probably less trees, and yeah, so there's more sight, and so he wanted to bring him back more deeper in. Yeah, definitely see that. Um, Lauren Williams, unclothed north of creek, and then he tossed some of the clothing into the creeks later. I think that's something like that went down. Um, Richardson family, good to see you. Hello, mom, crew, late. Good to see you both together again. Excellent job, Chris, Steve, and mods. Thank you. And Andrea, Mrs. Steve, did an amazing job. We'll play it one more time. Um, let's see here. Just seeing. Let's see what Sleuth's got. I think Libby placed the phone in the shoe. Oh, okay, so he agrees. I think the killer hit Abby and Libby, ran across the creek. Abby quickly got dressed in whatever. Ooh, interesting. Abby scooped up Libby's clothes and followed them across. Yeah, yeah. Uh, there's a lot of possibilities, but I could see just Libby. Obviously, if it wasn't for her, we may not even be this far. And just with the shoe and the phone being together, I just think it's kind of interesting.
Having been an outdoorsman and having uh, been a hunter and cleaning game and having become bloodstained myself, uh, I've often, from where I've harvested a deer or otherwise, then go to the nearest water source and wash down. And is
Uh,
that how some of these items got to the creek? Is that he took them and was using them as wash rags or something?
oh, okay.
And so, not saying that is true, but
Yeah.
that, as he was going, did he see them laying there and he just picked them up as he was going to wash off some of this, whatever transfer of evidence that occurred, and that he just picked them up, not so much that he was going to use them as part of cleaning, but he could have. But also that, kill two birds with one stone. Let's just go ahead and throw the shoes and the clothing in the creek, and I'll wash up the best I can because I've got to get out of here. And so once again, it's just
Right.
speculation.
Yeah. Um, let's see. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything here as far as donations. I think. Oh, we got a fluffy cookie. I need to get to yours. And find you a fluffy cookie where you're at. And of course, shout out to my wonderful mods. They do an amazing job, and we're gonna do something before the year ends. Either in November or December, we're gonna do a special show for the mods because they don't get paid anything, but we do try to do something for them, and so I wanted to do something special for them before the year ends. So, but yes, they do such an amazing work. Um, Hey, Jason Watts, good to see you. What I missed? Quite a bit, bud, if you're just coming in, sadly, but good to see you. Always an honor. Definitely have to reach out to you. Always an honor to have Jason Watts in here. Fluffy Cookie. The offender likely had Napoleon small man syndrome, in my opinion. Sounds a lot like RA, yeah. Thank you, Chris and Steve, for tonight's show. Thank you so much, Fluffy Cookies, for the $5 and your comment. I agree. If it is Richard Allen, of course he's innocent until proven guilty. Um, but yeah. Uh, uh, as I'm getting to the last few questions here, Steve, anything that I missed that you wanted to address with
Oh,
the entry or
there's just so much unknown, and
sure,
we just got reset back to where we were uh, exactly after the house search and the arrest was made, and prior, just pre uh, uh, Richard Allen getting his first set of attorneys, and now we're having to go through this process. And we
yes,
have a little bit more information, but we don't have everything. And
oh
these
yeah,
images, these images, we have to be so careful on because, like I said, we don't know how true or accurate they are, and
yeah,
until someone introduces them in court, they they won't know. And
sure,
And there's so many possibilities out there. The only thing we know is that there are two innocent children lost their lives at the hands of a predator,
Yep.
and hopefully um, it will justice will be found for them. That's all we can hope for.
Yeah. Um, but let's see. Jedi Platypus. I love that name. The clothing would have been bloody if the girls were dressed and were unalived when they were dressed. I would agree with their injuries, right, Steve? I
Yeah,
mean,
that's and the attorneys make mention that there's a remarkably lack of
blood.
on the clothing. So and
That's
so I have to tend to. That's how come I was saying that if they receive those injuries, and if we go by that the defense is mostly telling the truth, then the homicides occurred and some redressing occurred after homicides.
yeah. I totally agree. Um, uh, Chris Davis, where is the pool of blood for Abby? We don't know. There's no mention of it. That is a question we don't know, along with many others. Still, so many things, obviously. Um, the one thing I do want to mention, and I'll see if we can get to a few more. If you've got some questions for Steve, because usually I only have him on once a week, so try to always make it special for him, and for the chat to be able to get some answers or questions in. But one thing I wanted to, because I see on Twitter a lot, and I know there's supporters of Richard Allen, or they believe he's innocent, and or maybe not believe he's innocent, but believe he's being treated unfairly. Um, and obviously, I'm no expert, but it sounds like obviously he's in prison, which obviously is not the natural course of, because he has not been convicted of anything. He should be in a local jail. But keep this in mind that the reason Delphi is a small town, right, Steve? I mean, it's I can't
Beautiful
remember
town, absolutely gorgeous little town.
but it's small population, right? I mean, it's
Yes.
so the problem is they have these two jails. They got Cass County and Carroll, if I'm correct. Um, and that what they're afraid of, and the reason why he's in this other prison is because they don't have the manpower to watch him. Because keep in mind, this guy is right now he's not guilty, but he's convicted of two heinous crimes. With children. I'm trying minors, whatever you want to call them. And anybody in jail, well, not anybody, but there'd be certain wackos in jail that would take the pleasure, you know, taking his life, and so they're worried about his safety. And I know it sounds kind of it's a double-edged sword because, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. And I understand the point that, he's not convicted of it. And once he's convicted, I have, if he is convicted, 'cause
yeah,
we don't know which way he's going to go. But once he is convicted, I really don't care if there is a concerned citizen that decides that incarcerated, and it has happened on numerous occasions where other offenders who were no angels themselves did jailhouse justice and taking it out on convicted offenders. And so there is a great danger to Richard Allen, and wherever he has to be maintained to be kept safe until he goes before that jury and either found innocent or guilty. Uh, he deserves that. He deserves to be maintained in a safe environment wherever that is, and
yeah,
there's laws and um, of how he is to be taken care of, and I know that people jump on the train that he's um, being tortured and things. I don't think that's the case, but that's just my personal opinion.
right. And I want to play this video, but I think it's causing that to lag. I think I figured out
Yeah,
the lag. It's fine. If I'm playing something big. Maybe I think I might have needed to restart my computer. Usually, I always restart my computer before I do a live just to do a fresh wipe, and I didn't do that. I probably should have done that. Anyway, but yeah, I just wanted to mention that because I see a lot of people on Twitter mention that Steve's or Richard Allen's not getting a fair treatment, but I think maybe some forget that they don't have the manpower to protect him in these regular jails, and uh,
And
being
I find that
what
a
he's
sad state of affairs.
yeah it's kind of bad with that. Um, let's see. I thought I saw maybe one more question I wanted to get to. Yeah, I wanted to play the video one more time, but if you haven't seen it, go back and play it. And also, you can go check it out on Steve's channel. Um, Sandy, thank you so much. Hello, great discussion. Yeah, we try to bring the control test with the facts that we know, and then kind of build theories around that. We try to stick with the facts and what we know, but it definitely these control tests have definitely, in my opinion, brought it under a different light, especially after seeing them
Yeah,
being covered up. I, in my opinion, I feel like they were just trying to cover them up, but
yeah.
I definitely still see the angle of the signature
Hmm.
because there is similarities with the
Yeah.
sticks as well.
Well, like I said, if the defense has evidence that they were moved and they were brought there from some other location, I'm on the defensive side that yes, we have more than one offender. But if everything is within 25 to 30 feet, as what it appears to be, then of course a lone wolf absolutely could have uh, did this crime by himself.
Right. Let's see. So, yep, I think we covered it all, and we're at the hour and a half mark. Well, a little bit more. Marion Olson, thank you so much for the super sticker, the 3.99. You are so awesome. Really appreciate the support. Thank you so much. Um, yeah, that was weird. And because yeah, it sounded like there was two bras put on.
Well,
Um,
I spoke to a professional uh, psychiatrist, psychologist about that,
oh,
and uh, and they said that it's not uncommon for young girls who may want to enhance their look.
sure.
That could be. We don't know if that's the case. Only that's where the victimology will come in. That law enforcement will have went in and found out those facts.
Sure.
So, and then those facts will be brought up to the court and to the jury, and the determination will be made there. And so, for people right now just to speculate that, but we don't know what her normal wear and what she did. Her family, friends, they know, and it'll be brought up if it goes to trial. And through the victimology, we'll have a clearer understanding. If this is a something that she absolutely never did, then the offender played a part in it.
Yeah. Um, and this has definitely been a question that's been, yeah, it's a great question. Excuse me. From Camilla, it was an unscheduled day off of school. Yep, it was a makeup snow day, so they got the day off because they didn't get to use all their snow days, and so they had that day off that Monday. And do you think it was a crime of opportunity when he saw the girls, or was he there on a hunt? What do you think, Steve?
Well, at some point, regardless of opportunity otherwise, he decided to target them. Was he out there on the bridge to target others? He had everything in the world uh, to complete the task at hand for the fact that um, whoever committed this crime had the ability to control two victims,
Yep.
one victim, or more. And how did he do that? Is it through an edged weapon and a gun? It appears so. And so uh, the we have to look at that and give it the proper weight. Um, that he targeted them at some point. And once he targeted them, he carried through with it, and we have where we're at today because of that. And targeting doesn't have to be that he was stalking them for a week or a month. It could be as little as a minute or 10 seconds that um, he may have been targeting one of the other witnesses or another female on the trail that day. And then
Right.
this happened that he was cut off from pursuing one victim and
Yep.
refocused on them. So there's so many possibilities of that. And or they could have been lured there and they were the original target from the get-go. We just don't know.
Yep. So true. So true. Um, but Brenda, thank you so much for the super sticker. You are so sweet. Thank you so much for the support. Um, Just let's see. I looked at the temp. Yeah, it was. Yeah, the temperature was a little warmer for that time of year. Of course, it does dip down. Obviously, when the sun starts going down, the wind was. It did pick up a little bit. That's why I was kind of mentioning. I wonder if the leaves kind of got natural. But uh, just to recap real quick, we watched the video where Steve dragged Mrs. Steve, just to kind of get an idea of that environment, and it looks like you wouldn't really be able to tell if there was drag marks, if that was kind of a similar scenario, right, Steve? I mean, it,
Correct. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and there was many more answers and more questions that it raises, but I think it was an amazing uh, control test, and we'll try to put together a short video for my regular viewers. But with that, Steve, anything else you want to add that I might have
No,
forgot?
nope. Just keep the families in mind, and let's hope that the courts move smoothly. And I believe the judge has it well in hand. And a lot of things are going to start happening this week. Some new attorneys are going to be brought to the table, and let's hope it's uh, quick and that we find justice for them as soon as possible.
Yeah, maybe a big wig comes in. I mean, this is a high profile case. I can't see. I mean, it's definitely a big possibility that a big name jumps in. I mean, like a Jose Baez or whoever, because this is going to be huge, especially if it's televised. Oh my goodness. Um, I mean, yeah. The F tree was swabbed for blood, but bark was not taken. Should bark have been taken? I'm sure I know what you're going to say, Steve.
I would have probably got me a chainsaw and cut me out a big.
I knew you were going to say something like that. You're going to take the whole damn. Yeah, you're going to
Yeah,
take the tree. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'd had a nice exhibit.
It's not funny, but it is. Yeah, they didn't take the sticks in the beginning. I mean, if he handled them with his hand and he wasn't wearing gloves, he's touching all these logs. Um, and then they just tossed him over. They did come back and retrieve him, but I mean, yeah, you got to shake your head at that, saying what were you guys thinking?
Absolutely.
Uh, thank you so much, Camilla, for the $10. And yeah, definitely some mistakes, but they do happen. So, anywho, I think I've got everything. I tried to get some questions here that I could. But one more time, if you haven't, please hit that like button. And I promised a new pet outro. I have it almost ready. I had some late pictures get sent to me, so I got to add a few more in. But definitely Wednesday, I'll have the new pet outro ready. But I'll play an older one that we have. But with that, yeah, we'll probably be covering, at least on my show, we'll be covering, because there's some newer details with the Rex Humerman case. And so I'll probably be covering that Wednesday, unless something happens in between. But that's probably where we'll go next, but we always are going to keep our eyes on Delphi. And then, of course, we have the hearing just literally less than a week away. It's, oh my gosh, I'm just looking at the thing here. It's 8 days away. So maybe, yeah, we may see his new attorneys maybe on the 31st. I didn't even think about that when you said that. So, but there probably won't be a trial in January, sadly.
Yep.
So, we got one more coming in. Why can't I click it like that? Sorry, Steve. Let me grab this. I can find it. There it is. Cheryl Johnson, thanks for all you do for the missing and the living. Thank you so much. Yes, we love to help out the missing. We do work on cold cases. Steve's been working his butt off behind the scenes. And we couldn't do it without your guys' support. So once again, link to his channel. If you're new, please go and show him some love by subscribe to his channel. Also, his website's up there. Also, same thing is in my description for those that are rewatching. You can find his link in the description. So, Steve, thank you so much for coming on. Always a pleasure, my friend.
Been an honor. Appreciate it.
I'll wait for you backstage, buddy.
All right.
All right. All right. Thank you guys so much for everything and taking the time out of your guys' day to watch the show. We always try to add something different from other shows with these control tests. Obviously, can't do them every day or every week, but we definitely try to bring something new to the table along the side of working with cold cases. And there's always stuff that's going on behind the scenes. And then when winter comes, it's going to kind of slow down, but we're still working and talking with families, and we'll be getting. I'm not sure what we got in store for the winter, but as soon as spring comes, I know I'll be back out on the road. But it could be even sooner. It all just kind of depends on what the situation is. So, with that said, one more time, thank you to the mods for you guys' wonderful support. What you guys do. And let me get a outro ready. Let's see here. And I will have a new pet outro Wednesday. So with that said, I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Love you guys, and we'll see you guys Wednesday.